Hello, good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good evening, Anthony.
Good.
Good evening.
It's good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, I can see a lot of comments already, and we're going to get to them, but we're starting a little bit different tonight. I don't know where Jim is. Jim's was heading up north, so maybe he's on the British Rail stuck on Virgin trains in the middle of the north of England. But we're doing a little round robin tonight, so you all know Jack. Jack's been subbing a lot, but Jack's been taking a leading role, and we're loving having Jack. Straight Talk with Jack. Indiana, trumpet. Carl, you all know from Audiophilia. How you doing, Carl?
Very good. Good to be back in New York again.
Yeah, you were in Finland for 2 weeks, right?
I was in Finland and Poland.
And how was your trip?
It was very nice. It was too short, but I got to, see people I wanted to see and also go to a conference.
Did you spend a lot of zlotys?
I did. Yes.
And of course, my brilliant co-host Scott from the Pressing Matters. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good to see you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's lovely to see everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. We've got a million questions we're going to get to, but first we've got something far more important to do. I want to introduce Robert Winn, ex-principal flute of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and also a professor of flute at the Hochschule für Musik und Tanz in Köln. Is that in Cologne? Yes.
Your accent's great, lad. It's great. Well done.
And Robert's an English flute player from the north of England. Robert, it's so great to have you. It's now 1 o'clock in the morning. The clocks went back in Germany. It should have been 2 o'clock, and Robert still agreed to come on. So we really appreciate you coming on, Robert. How are you?
You're very welcome. Yeah, slightly the worse for wear, but otherwise not too
I'm
bad.
going to put you big so everybody gets to see you.
Oh, please don't. It's really
yes,
absolutely.
No. Look at that handsome face. There is this one, of course. Let me just let me do this one. I'm not sure if I can share it. Can I? Let's see. Add to the stage. There's Robert when he was at his finest. Yes.
Guys, look, this is terrible. This is
the principal flute of the Royal Philharmonic. So, Robert, tell us, a little bit about how you got into the flute, because there's no beating around the bush. When you're principal of London Orchestra, you're as Paul Edmund Davis used to say, he's the le grand fromage, you're the big cheese. So, how did you get into the flute, and what made you start on the flute?
Well, it's a weird story. When I was a kid, the schools said that everybody should have an instrument, and so I remember sitting at the dinner table, and a letter had arrived where we were allowed to choose some instrument of torture, shall we say, and the list began with a clarinet, and my father played the clarinet, so he said, "We're not playing that." And then there was a cello. I think that was the number 2 on the list. And that's far too big. And then I think there was a trumpet. And that's too noisy. And then what was the next one? Oh, I think the next one was a violin, if I remember rightly. I think my mother said, "If you think I'm listening to that scratching around for the next..."
Oh, God.
So that was that. And then I think there might have been another one, but eventually we got to the flute and nobody said anything.
So that's fine.
In my sort of not really having any idea what flute was or any of the other things, frankly, I think I just said, "Well, I'll have that one."
How old were you when this was
7?
Oh, 7.
Yeah. 7. Yes.
And where was this, in North Yorkshire?
It was in Halifax.
Halifax, yeah.
As in Hull, Hell, and Halifax. Halifax. But not, where is it you live? Nova Scotia?
4,000 miles to the west, you silly bugger. We're in Victoria, British Columbia. But we're all over, I'll tell you. Let me just get you off here a second. So Carl's in New York City. Scott's in Miami Beach. That's why he looks so happy, the sun. Jack is in Tennessee.
No,
And-
stop it.
Anthony is in. Let me just get rid of that. Going. And Anthony is in Victoria, British Columbia, a very beautiful part of the world. But we're very lucky where we live. Now, so Robert, you picked the flute, and
That is really how it happened. Can you believe this?
And
There was
did you
no
have-
noise when the flute was mentioned. Nobody said anything. It was
and
like
did you do peripatetic teaching? Like a peripatetic teacher came into your school and gave you lessons?
I had a guy who played the oboe,
Well, that's fine as long as there's someone, right?
and after I think the second week, he rang up my mother and said, "I can't teach this kid anymore. He's better than I am already."
That's good.
And that was the beginning. That was how it started. After that, I still have some photographs. Actually, it's quite frightening. You know, there's the moment when you just started and you sort of hold the flute and it looks like this.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there are three of us in this kiddies orchestra after, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes of playing this thing, and there's one of them sitting there looking like a professional flute player. It's horrific. It's really quite frightening. Can I be on the split screen? This single screen is terrifying.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Robert, whatever you like, whatever you like. Ever since our days in London, I will tell just a quick story. Robert eventually gets to the venerable, wonderful, amazing Royal Academy of Music. When I was down the road down the road at Trinity, and so Robert, I saw Mike Moore was said hello on, and Mike Moore was at the academy with you, right?
Oh yeah, we were all sitting going do 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 do, and Mike was going. That's
right.
And everybody was going.
Great jazz.
Not right. No.
And also, was Judith Havard in with you as well?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of good flute players in that school.
There
Anyway,
were a lot of good flute players in that school.
So we went to so I've told the story just briefly, but there was a girl that I was going out with.
Nothing embarrassing, please. There's
Nothing.
no sex, politics, or religion at the bar.
No. Anyway, but a little while later, and Robert played Mozart's second concerto, and it was the second best performance of that I'd ever heard. Anyway, no, it was a brilliant performance, And we were having coffee about a week later, and she dumped me. Well, we kind of dumped each other, but she really dumped me. And I said something really mean-spirited or something. She said, "And by the way, Robert Winn's a better flute player than you are too." And I thought that hurt the most, but even though it was true.
We're talking about, something sort of the Paleolithic era of music.
Yes, many years ago. So anyway,
it's such a long time ago, and you look so well.
Well, so do you. So you went through school.
Yep.
And then you auditioned. Now, which of the colleges did you audition at, or just the academy?
Manchester, the academy, I think, just two, or maybe three. I don't actually remember, but certainly those two.
Was it the Royal Northern back then, or was it the Royal Manchester?
It was the Royal Northern, and they nobody wanted to teach me because they didn't like the style which I'd been taught. It was very what's the word? It was all a bit political in those days, I think is the word. It still
is, unfortunately. So
you see, because I came from Yorkshire, I knew nothing. It wasn't like if you went to one of the great violin teachers in New York, or if you went to somebody famous, because that was the place to go, like Galway or whoever it was, because I didn't know who anybody was. I mean, I could have fallen over a policeman and not realized that it was anybody important. It was.
So how did you find your time at the academy? You did 4 years or 5 years?
Goodness, you ask questions. 4, I think.
That's my job, man. I got to ask a few questions tonight.
Well, I mean, I went there, and at that time, everybody was worried about the future in the music industry.
Do you remember that?
And,
the £1 Million Orchestra that was going on then, the BBC, the cuts. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and I think I started off as there was a double course where you were a musicologist or a bachelor of the arts or something, and I think I did that for the first year, and then I went to the exam at the end of the thing, and they looked at me and they said, "Winn," and I sort of said, yeah. And he said, "Do you want to play the flute?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, go and play the flute." That was the day I got kicked off the bachelor's course, where they decided on my behalf that it would be a better idea if I went and practiced scales rather than learning about whether Brahms ate bacon for breakfast.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like American universities. You got to take those, all those extra courses.
But and so I have no degree. I mean, I have nothing. I have no official piece of paper of any sort.
Incredible. The British system.
I have a 3-year degree and a piece of paper, which was, I suppose, the equivalent of the masters at that time.
Yeah, that's what they say.
It's known as a concert exam, or it's not, one of these kind of
diploma, I think.
Yeah, something. That's right.
Ryan in Maui. He's in Maui. Lucky Ryan lives in Maui. He has a question for you, Robert. Robert, what flute repertoire do you like best? Does anything cause anxiety or PTSD? That's a great question. Yeah, I got a few.
Yes, PTSD, post-traumatic
stress disorder. Does anything causes stress? Anything in the order?
I was having way too much fun. I mean, when I was a kid, there was no attention deficit syndrome, or there were no allergies to things like milk. And I mean, you just got on with it. I was is it ASDS? Is that what they call it? AHDH or something? I think they call it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sit still. I was one of these kids that, at the end of the term, I'd shuffle the sort of thing in the bottom of the chair, I mean, there wasn't anything like that. It was, sit still, child. There was no sort of sense of that it was difficult. So you just got on with it. And I spent a lot of time. I was having way too much fun. I mean, I had troubles, of course, everybody does. But I think if you know your subject, then it shouldn't be something which causes you terror.
Andrew from Oz, he's in Canberra. A lovely fellow, says, how scary is the prelude à la Comédie d'une Femme?
That's a very good question. That's terrifying until you've done it once. That's a horror.
You're just right. And do you actually articulate the note, Robert, or do you just?
No, you hope that there's somebody who stands in front of you who does this.
Yeah.
If they're any good, they drop the stick at the beginning. The point of the baton, as it's called, this the white thing or whatever it is. A good conductor will hold his hand like this, in front of I don't know if you can see my hand here, and then the stick will go like this, and they bring the stick down, and then there's silence in the hall because everybody's seen the conductor hold the stick up,
and it is definitely silent. I mean, and
it's the only time when you don't play with the beat, and once the stick has dropped, then you start.
And do you articulate it, or you just let the air start?
You just the first time you do it, it's a horror, but everybody deals with it differently. I mean, it's one of those things where if you play too slow, you're gonna, that's a kind of shoot yourself in the foot bit.
I told you what Jan said about I was practicing it, and who was the flute player, Jan, from the LSO?
Alex Murray.
Oh, no, not Alex. No, this is recent. Gareth on the television. Right?
Gareth Davis.
Yeah, so Gareth was playing it, and I was browsing it, and I was downstairs, and she says to me, Anthony, why don't you play it in one breath like that nice man on the television? And that was as bad as getting dumped over Mozart second. So that was it. I was down there pressing that goddamn piece till it came out of my ears. But anyway, did you find it difficult, the breathing? Did the conductor insist on having in one breath, or did you?
No, that's another interesting question. I mean, some of them are very, they can be very demanding. I know Tilson Thomas in the LSO.
Yeah, Gareth. You told Gareth, one breath, please.
Yeah, and it's like kind of doing one of those television programs where you have to swing through the bars, and then jump over burning things, and I think they like to torment you, really. I think the problem is that people play too slow and they try to do too much with it. I remember doing this. You want to conduct a story? I'd tell you. Okay, ready for the bad words, ladies and gentlemen? Here
yes, go ahead, bud. Go ahead.
So we're sitting at the Barbican Centre, and it was the Royal Phil, and we're doing the concert, and the program starts with L'après-midi, and we just finished the rehearsal. And the gentleman concerned was either the nephew of a very famous pianist called Robert Casadessus. I think that's his name. And I cannot remember what this guy's name was, but it's the same surname, and it was a relative of the family.
There's Gabby, there's Robert, there's
And he came over to the woodwind section. We were sitting, he's just called the break, and we're about to go and have a coffee before the show. And, he came over and he said, Robert, and everybody was still packing their oboes and bassoons away. He comes over and he says, Robert, how are you? And I said, oh, well, I just got to play L'après-midi this evening. And he said one of the real moments where the whole thing is totally shattered. He looked at me and he said, do not worry, it is just some French shepherd fucking a sheep. I mean, the whole place collapsed. Everybody fell about, and in a sense, this was fine because those were some of the moments when you have a reality check. I remember I haven't told you this. This is a good story. I was in one of the very first gigs I ever did was with the Philharmonia Orchestra, and I was 21. And I'm sitting on principal chair in the Philharmonia Orchestra, which is like going to the palace for tea when you're a child. I had no idea. And we went to Lyon in France, and we did a piece of music by Berlioz, which was, I think it was a cantata for, must have been soprano and orchestra or something. And the soloist was a woman called Grace Bunbury.
Oh yeah.
And we did the rehearsal. She arrived, and this tower of a woman. I mean, to me as a young guy, she was like, "Whoa, look at this! What an incredible!" I mean, it was like a sailing ship that had just arrived on the stage.
And she's a diva as well. But
I mean, a fantastic singer, and it was extraordinary. But what happened to me that evening, I will never forget. And it was just a total leveler, exactly in the same way. The first piece in the concert, I think, was the Elgar Serenade or the Tchaikovsky Serenade for strings, one of these, one of these things. And so there were no woodwinds. And I was sitting at the side of the stage in Lyon. And in Lyon at that time, the stage, the approach to the stage was kind of two corridors at the side, and it came out at the front. So when you arrived on the stage, you were actually practically at the front of the orchestra, and then you had to go back to find your position. And I was sitting on a very, very small Van Gogh kitchen chair. Those with the little legs, and the crossbar at the side. And I'm sitting on this thing waiting for going on. And all of a sudden, this extraordinary woman appears in a red velvet dress. I mean, jaw-dropping. Absolutely extraordinary woman. I mean, wow, presence. And I was in awe. I mean, I was a kid. What did I know? I'd never seen anything like this before. Never mind anybody who'd sung. And I'd sat in the rehearsals and thought, gosh, this is really quite something. And in the good English tradition, I stood up as she approached, and I said, "Would you like the chair?" And she looked at me and she said, "Honey, my ass don't fit on that." I mean, it's a one-time, you're in the middle of the toughest gig that you've ever done in your life, and I've never forgotten. I mean, they're the kind of things that you just sit there and you think, did this just happen? Yeah, and it really does,
Great. Maybe you guys should Google her. She's in the audience. She's quite a statuesque, amazing singer. So, Robert, how did you get in the RPO? Can you, first of all, Jim has just arrived. Jim from What If You Live, but Jim has played a lot in the RPO, plays viola. But I think just a little after your time, when you
I'll find you on this peculiar thing that I have here.
And Jim's from Liverpool. Robert, how did you get into the RPO? Did they just ask you? Did you have to go to a trial? How did it work?
I did a lot of auditions in a lot of orchestras, and then I think one day somebody turned up at the house wanting to buy a flute. I was selling an instrument, and I didn't know this guy. He turned up and he said, "Hi, my name's Julian Coward," and I said,
Oh, Julian Coward. Yeah, Julian Coward. Yeah.
and so then he came and then he wanted the flute, and I said, well, I was kind of scared because I didn't know who the hell he was. So I said, well, you know, if you want the flute, he said, I played it. He said, oh yeah, I'll take this flute. He said, could you bring it over next week? I said, yeah, sure. So I went over, and when we went over, and he said, bring another flute. So I took another flute, and we played some duets and had dinner and a bottle of wine. And I thought, this is all very nice. And a week later, I got a call. I never did an audition. No, I never did.
Wow! So you just appointed. And
yeah, it was very strange. When I was a student, I was here we go. Terrible stories.
No, keep them coming.
Never speak ill of the dead.
No, this crowd loves stories.
When I was a student, that we had the first band, or symphony orchestra, whatever it's called, and I was the principal flute. And every term there was a new conductor, and we'd had Mutti, and we'd had Simon Rattle, and we'd had this one and that one and the other one. None of whom
Carl's friend Simon Rattle,
and none of them had vaguely. Mutti was sort of kind of some Italian chap, you know. I mean, we were kids. What did we know? Anyway, there was one guy who came called Durati, and Durati. Well, he stood in front of the first band, and he said, it was Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra, I remember this. And he got suddenly very, 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 very angry and said, ladies and gentlemen, I have not come to teach you the notes. Gone. Left. Wow. He did the famous Durati walkout.
Yeah, Jim experienced that.
Ran down the street after him, you know, begging him to come back, you know, and we'll give you an honorary degree and get your ass back in front of the orchestra, you know. And of course, we didn't know anything about this. We were just kids, but we knew that we hadn't learned the notes. At least this lot, they didn't know t'other from which in the Bartok. Anyway, the very first gig I did with the Royal Phil was this old guy. And I had completely forgotten about this man. And I'd forgotten about this whole business with Doc Durati. And this old guy walked into the Henry Wood Hall. It was like, you could see the terror. People just sort of, everybody was in freeze frame, you know, the front of the violas, the glasses had steamed up, and he hadn't even walked in the door, you know, and everybody, you could see there was abject terror in the faces of these people. Anyway, this old guy gets on the stand, and we're doing the Frank Symphony in D minor. And somebody had said, be careful with this guy, because he eyeballs newbies. Greenhorns get a tough, you know, looking at with Doc. When I was a kid, I was in short trousers with a little tie, you know. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting involved in here. I was 23 or something. Anyway, we get to the middle of this thing. Stick stops.
Uh-oh.
And the flute goes, and there's a very tricky little bit that goes, and it's the only difficult bit in the whole piece, you know, and it's just winding your fingers around each other, you know, at this moment. And he stopped the orchestra, and he looked at me, and he said, and I can't remember his accent very well, but it was kind of like, now look, I'm going to show you how to do this for the next 30 years, so you better get it right, you know. And there was you could sense that everybody breathed in with this guy. And then he looked, and he looked, and you could see everybody going, oh God, this kid's about to get, you know,
excoriated.
He was off the podium, and he was coming through the orchestra towards me. And it was like Moses and the parting of the Red Sea, you know. I mean, it was extraordinary. And the leader was out of his chair, and Durati was coming, and he was coming, and he was coming. And in Henry Wood, it's quite a long sort of walk to the flute stand. And he got to the flute chair, and he peered over the music stand, and he looked at me and he said, "You again.
Oh, he remembered.
Welcome." And he held his hand over the top of the music stand and shook my hand in front of this complete bunch of strangers. And you could hear this sort of,
Oh, he's been
Durati just
Great
went up
Durati.
to shake this kid's hand. And I was like, I mean, and then he turned around to the whole orchestra and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, coffee." And I mean, that was it. The whole deal was over by that time. It wasn't a question of whether I was going to get the job. It was a question of when. And this guy had remembered me. And many, many, many years later,
Wow.
Robin Golding, who was the registrar at the Academy when I was a student,
Oh yeah, Robin Gold. I
came
remember
to a
him.
concert. And he said to me, "Do you remember that day?" And I said, "You mean at the Academy?" And he said, "Yeah, that's right, when Durati conducted." And I said, "Yeah, I'd forgotten about it until this incident happened." And he said, "You know, he came off the stage when he was walking out, and he said to me, 'Who's the kid playing the flute?'"
Oh wow. Wow, that's good.
And I mean, it was a sort of a constellation of events. He was like my granddad. I mean, nobody came near me when whoa. I mean,
He wasn't the music director when you got the principal flute job. Was he music
he
director?
was the conductor laureate or something, or the I think, or was he
And who was the MD when you got the job?
Andre?
Now Andre Previn.
Ah.
Oh, I love Andre. I think it's we all do Jack. We're all big Andre Previn fans. I mean, he was a great musician. He was. Did you?
I think of all the people I've ever worked with in this industry, he is way the most. Maybe most is the wrong word, but anyway, we use the word most. I think of all the people I've ever met in this industry, he is the most versatile, extraordinary understanding of how it works.
Amazing.
I did some things with him. I sat in a bar with him in Norway, jazzing with the trumpet and the double bass. I sat in bars with him drinking whiskey in New York. And I remember classic moment, another great, I mean, the one-liners to die for. We were sitting, the four of us, and the principal viola, what was his name? Andy Williams?
Jim, do you know Andy Williams? The principal viola in those days? No.
Yeah, and I think the leader was there, and I was there, and somebody else. And we just done Avery Fisher, and there was a review in the New York Times about the concert that we did. And I had it. I bought the paper because we were all, fascinated to know.
Oh, they all read reviews. Don't tell them. Don't let them.
Yeah,
all of them.
This is classic. And I said, "Oh, by the way, here, Andre, the review asked, it's really good." He looked at me, ice cold. He said, "Hey, kid." He used to call me kid. And he said, "You believe the good ones, you better believe the bad ones."
That's right.
I was like, whoa. And I mean, this is a man. I did Mozart piano concertos with him, and there's some video in the internet. I think that's it. Yeah. Well, we did some stuff in
Beautiful.
In Japan. I mean, that guy playing a Mozart piano concerto.
I know. I mean, he's a god.
Extraordinary.
I'm sorry.
I mean, his skills, the writing, and I mean, phenomenal musician.
Francisco Javier Munez Garcia has a question for you. Of all the conductors you have worked with, which one left the best impression on you? Can you choose one? Maybe difficult.
As a technician, as a pure conductor, without any question, Lauren Marcel.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about his technique, eh?
Just give me a sec.
Yeah, okay. Where's he going? Jim, how are you, bud? You okay?
I'm good.
Hi, Jim.
Any reason? Yeah, we were getting nervous for you.
It's 12:30 here.
Yeah, but we thought you were going to be in Liverpool.
No, I didn't go to Liverpool in the end. I've had to do something else. I had to go to a funeral yesterday, so it's
okay. All right.
long story, but no.
Anyway, sorry. Okay, Robert. So yeah, tell us Andre Marcel.
Yeah, I mean, Marcel was a very tricky guy to work with. I love Schulte, which a lot of people didn't. A lot of people had and a lot of people hated Durati. because
Well,
the
that's
power
not
which
the
those guys
Corsa,
had in
right?
those days, it wasn't like it is now. You haven't got the right of return. I remember, Andre, when I first was in the orchestra, we did the Prokofiev with Anne-Sophie Mutter, and she must have been 18, 19. She's about the same age as me. She's around about 60, something like that, I think now. She must have been a tiny bit younger than me, I think, but it's something like that. And I remember this woman, fantastic looking young lady, came on stage, and there were television cameras, and it was one of Previn's telly series. And it was a piece which I really didn't know. And there's a terrible flute thing at the end. It goes, and in front of the whole, he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Robert, is this another of those premieres?" In other words, you never.
Oh,
And
boy.
many years later, we were in a recording studio, and I was in his dressing room without realizing that it was a dressing room. It wasn't Abbey Road; it was somewhere Watford, I think. And he came in, and I said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry." I go. He said, "Hey, Bob," and he was calling me Bob by that. We dropped the kid thing.
God, you are not a Bob, man.
And he said to me, I said, "I'm sorry, I was just," and we were doing a Brahms piano concerto, and there's one little bit which is just tiresome, and I was merrily practicing this, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't worry, I'm just coming to take a leak," and so he went, and as he came out of the John, he comes back, and he looked at me, he said, "You know," I said, "No. I don't. I try. One of these days I'll get it right." He said, "You know, I give you a real hard time out there, don't I?" I sort of, accepted the observation at least. And he said, "Well, kid, you're good. You can take it. So just get on with it."
That's right. That's right.
Hey, what did I do? It's kind of. But he was an intellectual challenge.
Now,
I think,
a lot of guys in England always. Sorry, go ahead, Robert. Go ahead.
I think possibly I never talked to him about it because it wasn't appropriate. But I wonder what the Bernstein thing was.
Yeah.
I never quite understood whether they had a relationship with one another in the sense of a musical sort of relationship, or whether they were like sort of brothers, or whether Bernstein was the number one and Previn was the number two, or because before Bernstein, all of the major conductors who'd worked in America and who'd recorded, they'd all come from Hungary, or they'd come from Germany, or they were second generation, immigrants who'd arrived in America to do that. And then, of course, Bernstein came along, and he was an American in that sense. And I never really tackled Andre about that. I really don't know how he felt about it.
Did you ever play with Bernstein?
No.
That's, Alice said the same thing. They wish they'd have worked with Bernstein. Now, without going into too many names, there are conductors that get on the stage, and they have the dead German conductor's outfit on. The Rolex backwards, and you know what I'm talking about, Robert. And but they don't know what the hell they're doing. You had some of those guys with the RPO that's like, he's at his chance. John Wilbraham, 5 minutes with the newspaper up. He's at his chance. That's it. Have you had conductors like that?
Yeah. There was one day in Germany, we were doing Brahms 4, and Andre he had a shoulder problem, and he had a cortisone injection, and he couldn't move his arm. And somebody, I don't know who it was. I have to say it was an American. And he came from an orchestra like Clarinetsville, one of these places, one of these kind of towns where, they say, "Oh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do Brahms Symphony this morning." And this kind of, and everybody sits there.
Yeah, those Americans.
Right.
Right, Robert. Those Americans.
If he'd come and he'd said, "Well, we're going to do the Brahms this morning," fair enough, okay. And I remember we got to the last movement, which is this cadenza for the flute, which is an extraordinary moment in symphonic repertoire.
Gorgeous.
And when we did the rehearsal, it went. and I stopped and I looked and I thought I was doing something wrong, you know, because it was so slow. I mean, it was half tempo, the quarter of the tempo. So. And I remember he stopped and we did it again. I sort of raised my little finger and said, excuse me. And everybody goes, Robert, shut up. And I said, no, sorry, did I do this right? Could you help me? Because it seems very slow. And is that actually the tempo you intended to go at, you know? And he said, yeah, that's exactly what Brahms intended. And he'd obviously got some score where the hieroglyphics about the tempo change were incorrect. So anyway, we went through this thing and I thought, you know, this can't be happening to me. We're not playing Brahms in Germany. And no, this. So of course you don't say anything because it's not your business to say anything. But of course, in the concert, I'm the principal flute, and the orchestra goes with me.
That's right, especially that
we
solo.
came down the scale, and it went dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da dee da, and he was still doing 3 when I was halfway through the next bar. And the orchestra, of course, went with
That's
me.
the best way. And
You know, at
like,
the end of the
solo,
concert,
man.
no, I mean, till death do us part. At the end of the concert, he stood every single member one by one up except me.
But
After the concert,
at least he noticed. Some guys wouldn't even notice. They'd be plowing through, like, oh, he's doing something good.
There are some moments when you have to take the thing by the scruff of the neck, and you have to realize that just don't, you know. And that's the famous one that I remember.
Andrew has another question for you before we get onto the teaching bit, and then because I don't want to keep you too long. Andrew says,
as long as you like, they're a fun group.
Can you do circular? Can you do circular breathing? Is it helpful? No.
I can't. Is it helpful for orchestra? I think an oxygen tank.
I don't know how the hell they do it.
There's a very famous solo in Salome where it goes. And I remember doing this with Gatti, and he stopped the band, and he said, "Could you do this part of it in one breath?" And it's really very unpleasant. And
After the
nobody does it. And he stopped the band and he said, could you do all the way to the top C sharp in one breath? And I sort of,
with the diminuendo, please.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you know, bells and whistles, and you sort of go through this. And there's one occasion when he stopped the orchestra and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "that's great flute playing," you know, and you think, wow. And he says, "Thank you," across the orchestra for actually having tried to do what it was that he wanted, you know. I think that's always the great thing about being an orchestra. If you have people's attention as a soloist, then when you have something to play, they will accommodate you. So if you play Scheherazade or you play L'Après-Midi or whatever, they're on your side. They want it to go well. I remember doing L'Après-Midi on one occasion with somebody else whose name I forget for some reason. And L'Après-Midi began like this, and it went,
"Oh no, oh no."
And I started, and I played about 3 seconds of the first, and I stopped. And I thought, what is this guy doing? And it was just sort of going on. And we started again, and again. Mr. Winn, you know, played, and then stopped. And all the conductors have a list of the names. And he looked at me.
Yeah.
Mr. Winn, is there a problem here? And by this time, I'd been in the band for several years. And I said to him, I mean, I'm really bad at this stuff, believe me. I mean, I was terrible. I said, do you not imagine that this solo is difficult enough without you waving your hands?
Waving your freaking stick at me, like, get off.
And it was like, oh. I said, could you just beat the upbeat to the third bar, please? And he was like, I mean, he was frozen in time. I mean, nobody had ever said it. I mean, God forbid that you should speak to a conductor like that. Like,
oh my God.
I'm not going on the stage with you doing semaphore like it's a Lufthansa freight terminal. You know, And I'm sitting here trying to breathe my last breath, you know, before I do this thing. And all I've got going in front of me is this kind of business, you know. And of course, he took it on board. But there's a moment when you talk about what was it, post-traumatic stress
disorder, yeah, anxiety.
These people, if they're so concerned with themselves that they don't actually acknowledge how difficult what you're doing is, then you have a problem. I mean, Andre, is it easier if I do it like this?
Yeah.
And
How can I help you?
Classic.
My God, you ever heard that from a conductor? I know.
This will crack you up. Forgive me for this one. Andre, if you're listening, I've never forgotten. This is really wonderful. We are doing a piece by Kodai called The Peacock Variations.
Peacock Variations, yeah. Big flute solo in it.
Big clarinet solo, right?
Yeah.
So she plays this thing, and it was fantastic, and everybody's scrabbling and tapping the stand, and all the rest of it. So anyway, he starts from the top of the movement or whatever it was, and we did it again. And he does this, and she didn't play.
Everyone's heart's in their throat.
They're really sort of sitting there going, "Oh God," and so and he looked over and he said, "Hey, honey, what's the matter?" She was quite a small woman, Prudence, never forget.
Whitaker, great clarinet player.
She said, "Well, Mr. Previn, it's just that you usually do it with your left hand."
Oh no!
The whole place. I mean, even for 5 minutes, you couldn't play a note, and it was just one of these moments, and he was brilliant. I mean, and he just looked at the orchestra and he said, sometimes I don't really know who's taking the piss out of who here, and then normal business, but I mean, so quick, the mind here.
It's like when Toscanini's yelling at the basses, that famous one, and I had a student say to me, "Mr. Krisha, why is he yelling?" I said, "You don't mind being yelled at by geniuses. It's the non-geniuses you want to be yelled at."
Yeah. But I think all the musicians that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with some very, very, very great people, Andre for me was.
Yeah, Jack.
I can't explain it. There was something. What's the word? We used to call it the common touch. It's this ability to make something accessible, which for most people is not. And if there's one thing wrong with the classical industry, it's that
Robert. Can I chime in for a second? Sure. I think the reason that made Andre what he was is because he was a musician first. And he knew what it was to be on the other side.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
So, Robert, before we get into before we have to say goodbye, which I'm going to have you on again because we're going to have volume 2 and volume 3 for sure. Can we just get into you were in the RPO for like 10 years?
I think it was longer than that.
And then you went to Cologne to teach. And why, concerning Brexit and the common market and everything, why Germany? Well, I think I know why, and Jim knows why. Anyone from England knows why. But why? How did you get the job in Germany in Cologne? And it's a very prestigious position. How did you get that?
Girlfriend.
What's that?
It was a woman.
Do tell.
Well, I went to Berlin to play with the radio orchestra in Berlin, and
cool.
We fell in love, and then I decided to go. She said there was a job in Germany, and then I ended up in this village in a place called Weimar.
Oh yeah, great music school there. The Franz Liszt had it, right?
Yeah.
And you taught there?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I
was practically imprisoned there. In fact, after the reunification, I wasn't allowed to leave.
Oh, that's right.
It was the most extraordinary situation because they'd had when the two parts of Germany came together, they employed me to lead the flute department, and I had to buy a library, and I had to set up the chamber music process, and so on and so forth, about how this machine was going to work after communism. And they said, here's your budget, get on with it. So I was left in this, but I mean, it was a village, and there was no water, and there were no panes of glass in the. I mean, it was extraordinary. They had brown coal heaters. I mean, peat heaters in the living rooms when I got there. Yeah. That's a whole other chapter for itself. The reunification of Germany. I went there in 1994, and I had to stay there until 1999. That is one of the most extraordinary political events of the last 70, 80 years. Really quite an extraordinary transfer of power, shall we say.
And how did you get to Cologne? Did you follow the
Well,
lady?
I mean, I was offered a job in Hanover, actually. I went and did an audition, and nobody told me, but I had to do 5 years. They'd made some kind of silent agreement amongst themselves that anybody who came from outside of East Germany, as it was at that time, had to stay there for at least 5 years, because otherwise there was going to be a sort of a loss of investment, if you will. And nobody who was working there knew about it. And then, so they gave me what's called a roof, a calling, because you're named. You get a letter from the ministry, and it says, "Dear so and so, we wish to call you to this job." And they withdrew it, which is a legal precedent, and it has to go through a lawyer. And at that point, you can put a legal injunction against it to block the thing. And I sort of looked at this and thought, and I hadn't left the orchestra at that point. I was still actually in half and half. And then I applied for Cologne, and then by that time the time had run out, so I was able to leave.
And how long you have another 2 or 3 years before you get
two more years? Yeah,
2 more years. What do you think you'll do after that, Robert?
I don't know. No idea.
It looks like you're living in a very lovely place in Cologne. I see behind you.
I'm under the roof.
It's right
Not mine. I rent it.
Robert, well, first of all, I cannot believe we've been on 45, 50 minutes, which is more than we usually do.
Really?
Yeah, I guess. Don't need
just warming up.
Well, can I ask you, will you please come back at some time?
Of course.
Thank you, Robert. Robert, does anybody in the panel have the guys have been saying loving the stories, loving the Durati and Trevor stories, and Joey says thank you so much, Robert. Winn, bravo. Does any of the guys on our panel have a question for Robert before we say goodbye?
I'll make a comment before Jim asks the last question.
Oh yeah, Jim's going to jump in. Robert will be half in the Kazi, and Jim's will be, Robert, come back from the Kazi. I got a question for you about the Royal Fair.
Yeah. I'm just going to Kazi.
Robert, I'll just say one thing. When I was studying in Indiana, Louis Davidson was my trumpet professor, Cleveland Orchestra, and Pellerite had Gignold, the violinist, was on the right of his office, and Pellerite was on the left. And he'd come in and tell stories, much like you would tell stories. And Louis once said, flute players, for some reason, have the best stories. I'll never forget that.
Well, we're all like, flute players are like divas. You know, you can tell them, and no matter what college, like the violinists, are like gypsies, and the brass players.
I think the industry has changed so much. I mean, one of my students is the piccolo player in the Royal Phil now.
Oh,
and the industry has changed so much. I mean, back in the day, it was all men, and
right.
I think there was one girl in the orchestra when I got there, or two, absolute max. There was the principal clarinet, and I think the harp player, and that was it. There was nobody else. The whole dynamic of how the industry works, the film industry, the studio industry, it was a sort of a group of sort of old men sort of smoking cigarettes and it's it's completely it's totally changed, and there was no kind of interpersonal relationships between the conductor and the people there. They walked in, they were gods. They were, I think, and of course what we didn't talk about, which I guess might have been interesting, is that when I started was the beginning of digital microphones and digital recording techniques. And studio work for me, which is where I did an awful lot of movies and crossover and jazz and et cetera, I was sitting there with Fletcher Henderson with his Coke spoon, his great gold Coke spoon. People like that were every week. But what's actually what's actually happened now is that you never knew what you were going to be confronted with at that time. It was, and when these people walked in, there were no pensions in the orchestra when I was there. There was no health fund. There was no holiday money. There was no sick fund. There was nothing.
That's insane.
We were on a daily rate. And if you didn't work, you had no money. So if the orchestra didn't work, and if somebody said the wrong thing, or somebody said good morning and it wasn't appreciated, that was it. Finish.
Yeah.
So the dynamics of this industry have changed so much because these towers of people who were so powerful. I mean, really, I mean, Durati was, I mean, he was a god. Schulte, Marzel, Tenstedt, all of these people were so powerful. And of course, in some senses now they've been dethroned. And, you know, you see women conductors and you see a much more general mix of people in the orchestra, you know, 50-50 of women and men. Well, at that time, it was the influence of those people in front of the orchestra was absolutely terrifying. And in the studio,
yeah.
I mean, I worked with Ettore Strata. I don't know whether you guys,
Oh yeah,
and he was my best buddy, and it was so nice and so on. But you knew that if it wasn't the way he wanted it, you better make sure it was going to be like that. You know, there was no friendly.
They're amazing with the Royal Philharmonic, the Ettore Strata, the what is it, a symphonic bossa nova, with Hubert Laws on it. Oh, that's a great record. That's a great record.
Yeah.
Listen, Robert, I cannot tell you what a pleasure. I knew from all those years ago you're acerbic and wonderful wit, and I thought to myself, you know, and you were on Facebook, and I see Robert, and I was like, who the hell are you? Well, we were compadres of some sort, but it was like
I remember. It's a long time ago, isn't it? Back in the murky past.
In the murky past. But Robert, I mean, you've had such an incredibly illustrious career, playing principal flute of the Royal Phil and the Philharmonia, and of course a lot of other orchestras, is an incredible achievement. And I knew it back when I heard you play Mozart too, that you were going to be going a long way, and it's wonderful. And now in Cologne and all Robert doesn't want me to say this, but 50% of Robert's students have got professional positions. That is a remarkable number in the music industry. That just shows you. So it's not just his playing, but his teaching and his professorial abilities and his books about breathing and phrasing. And if you want to hear Robert's playing, go to YouTube and type in Daft and Slowy Solo, Robert Winn, and just listen to Robert playing.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It's so beautiful. Anyway, Robert, you're very welcome, my friend. And I will call you again because we definitely want you to come on again and more stories, just more camaraderie. This group is all about classical music. We're trying to spread the word of classical music because you know what that's like these days.
That's a whole other subject, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So anyway, have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for staying up late. And we'll see you.
Put my little hat on and go back to bed now with my.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Nice to see you guys.
Thank you. See you. Oh my goodness, how wonderful was that? I know. Robert is just he's just such a character. But I mean, when you play in those London orchestras, you got to be, every note has to be perfect. You can't make mistakes. You got to be a great artist. It's not just like getting a job in the Indianapolis Symphony, which is a good orchestra, and you have to play it note perfect. These people have to be unique artists as well. And if you listen to Robert play Mozart flute and harp concerto, it's on YouTube. You'll hear it. It's exquisite. So we'll get Robert back. So Jim, how are you? What happened tonight?
I didn't realize the clocks went back last Sunday. So it's actually only 5-1 here.
Yeah, but you had a whole week to figure that out, dipshit.
Oh, I've had so many other things to think about this week, mate. I've had funerals and
I know. Well, look,
we're happy here. We're happy you're safe and sound. I realised because I went on I've got the TV screen on, and up you all came and it said live. We're going, what? But it's only like 12:15. Oh my God, I missed it.
I decided that I used to worry because you guys, I mean, you're all busy guys, right? And the show must go on, as you know me. It's 5 o'clock, man. It's going to go on. it was me in here talking to myself or talking to Jan. So I'm just going to have you guys on, and we'll do this. And I wanted to get Robert on early. I hope you don't mind. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is just go to do some of the questions, and then we'll do a round robins about some records, and then we'll talk. We've only got like 35 minutes, but we'll try and get in the borrowed in tonight. So let me just go to some of the questions, because the Peanut Gallery have been amazing and doing great questions, and I haven't been ignoring you. I've been focusing on Robert. I wanted Robert to have a great experience, because he could easily tell us to go screw himself. I'm not coming back to you, you losers. But he was such a great guy. So, so Andrew says, happy Halloween from Australia. And as Scott says, happy Candy Corn Day. It's 80 degrees in Chicago. And Scott, who does a lot of comments on our Peanut Gallery, it's his birthday. He's 66 years young. Happy birthday, Scott. And then Scott says,
maybe we should all sing.
Not that song. We'll get nailed. Those ladies still get a commission every time he comes on. Now, Illuminate. It's Illuminate. Illuminate is in Chicago. We had a lovely chat earlier this week. So, wow, Scott, first of all, happy birthday. Second, it's nice to see a fellow Chicagoan on here. And Illuminate's going to come on sometime. He's got some very interesting ideas and knowledge, a great knowledge base. So that's good. And here he is again. Good evening. Has anyone else heard they found a short composition by Chopin unsigned? Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
Saw the headline.
Here in New York.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and of course, Joey. How are you, Joey? Happy Halloween. And he said, of course, it's the best night of the week. So you're such a great guy. And it's 78 in the Motor City today. And Illuminate said, just to illuminate that point, just read the post again. After 200 years, the Morgan Library and Museum in New York, that's right, Carl, had an unknown waltz by Chopin in their vault. Open up your vault, Scott. That's right. Chopin in there. I'm just going to continue through these. And then Andrew says, morning from sunny Canberra. Looking forward to the show and showing some records. We'll get there. It's sometimes we don't have a guest and we have 90 minutes to shoot the crap, as they say, and show lots of records. But I think it's important. We have between Jim and I and others, we have a lot of friends in the business who have done very well in this business, and we want to share them with you. So I'm glad you got to see Robert tonight. I mean, just you can tell by his nature. But then go listen to him play on YouTube, and then you'll go, oh my God, is that the person we saw? That's him playing. Yeah, it's really that good.
Robert would be good if he wasn't so uptight,
Well, these English orchestral players, like, I'm not kidding. They don't take, they're Robert said the system's changed a lot, but people like Previn and Dorati and Schulte, these, Tenstedt, these were gods. We treat them as gods. Schulte, look at how Jack, you and I feel about Previn. We adore him, man. You just love him. Like, just everything he does is jazz, is classical. And then my dear Leanne. Hello, everyone. Hi, Deanne. This is Stephen. Have a great show. We'll watch tomorrow morning. Thank you for last week's advice from the panel and gallery. Yeah.
Where is Sky tonight?
He's coming. He's on. I've got a little thing for him. Good evening, Paris and macadamian fellow enthusiast. Alan says, as always, looking forward to tonight's discussion and special guest, Robert Winn. Robert, he says, Santa Cruz for Jack. Love the Central California coast. And here he is, Sky. Good evening, all. Yes, Andrew.
Get out your credit cards.
Yeah, well, I'm going to just go. Okay, there was some questions for Robert we've seen. Alan said about Ian Anderson, Herbie Mann. Ian Anderson is a good rock flute player, great rock flute player, and Herbie Mann is a great jazz flute player with a very unique sound. I'm not sure what Robert thinks of them, but they're both, But Ian Anderson says he doesn't even know the mechanics of an instrument. He's just a naturally gifted rocker, but he doesn't understand, how to play the Fauré fantasy right on the flute with the mechanical, right? But he's just a naturally gifted musician. Herbie Mann's a very good, but he's a real grump. I saw him in Paul's Mall in Boston in 1972.
Anthony, you mentioned Hubert Laws. What's your take on
Hubert? God of flute playing?
Thank you.
He is. As far as a jazz musician, he's like Wynton. They're good, They're very good, but it's their classical chops. Schubert Laws.
You could hear it.
Yeah, you should. Everyone should go and hear The Island, that great bossa nova chart by Luis Bonfa, with what the record Robert was on, symphonic bossa nova with Torrey Strata, and listen to Schubert Laws start off on the alto flute, and then he's incredible, absolutely incredible. Okay, let's go. We're just going to finish up, then we're going to show some records. Ozzy says, hello, Anthony, special guest Robert, lovely panel, and peanuts. Frederick says, best guest ever. He's pretty tough to beat. Now, we have to remember we had Gareth Morris from the LSO on, and we'll have some other flute players on. But next week we have Paul Sheeman, oboe extraordinaire, concert organist, and a conductor. One of those guys, very multi-talented. And Andrew said yes.
Oboist?
Oboe, yeah, oboe. And we went to high school together. And
can we ask him about building up that pressure in your head?
Yeah, Paul will tell you some stories. And Paul McDowell, the wonderful violinist, spectacular example of Perrin's piano skills, is recording the Frank and Debussy sonatas with Eric Friedman, very underrated violinist. Absolutely.
Oh, right.
Okay, so now we're gonna leave the comments for a while. I'm just gonna put let's see if anybody wants to come up. Okay, so I'm going to put you up large, and we're going to show some records. This is not the Borodin yet. Okay.
Okay.
Let's show some records.
I have a few things I can show. First of all, we were talking pre-show about the Ray Brown Trio. This is jazz, but I just want to show this briefly.
That's okay, my friend.
Jack has got a review of this coming up, as well as I, probably both out tomorrow. This is fantastic. This is the new reissue from Analog Productions of a record that's been out of print for a decade, and it's an audiophile favorite. It's just wonderful. Great, great sound. I ordered a few living stereo from Analog Productions that I hadn't had before. I have originals of these, and I chose 3 that were not reissued by Classic Records. So I'll be doing an overview of these 3 titles and comparing them to the originals. They did a beautiful job with this jacket. Now, I've criticized some of their jackets where they just went to a matte finish for no reason. This had a reason. This was originally a pebble grain matte finish on the original cover, and they've expanded it into a gatefold, so it looks really, really nice. I haven't heard any of these yet, so this is going to be a week or 2 away. This was always one of my favorites. I love Rubinstein. I've talked about it a lot on the channel. This is the first, a reissue of the first edition of the record, where they didn't add another track to it. Later editions added the list track to it. So that's going to be that's going to be very interesting to me to see what that sounds like. And then this is Petrushka. I kind of was hoping this was going to be a glossy cover, but it's not. But they did make up for it by making it into a gatefold. So
I think mine's glossy, Carl. Scott, I think mine's glossy. I think.
Really? Mine is not. They're slowly dropping the gloss off of these as they get repressed, probably for budget reasons.
That's okay.
Cool. That's it for today.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Okay, Carl, we're going to talk a little bit about streaming. What are you going to show us?
Sure. So not the Borodin, that's later, right? So
yes, we should get to the Borodin.
So here's one that this is Baroque Concertos.
Oh, she's so good. Oh my God, she's wonderful.
So I heard that. Yeah, she's using this piccolo trumpet in lieu of what it would be. A lot of the pieces are very nice. The recording's nice. I loved it.
She's a wonderful player. Sam Mendes' wife, the director's wife. He's married to her. Sam Mendes, the director. That's his wife. She's amazing.
Here's another one I always keep an eye on Fazil Say. He came out with another all of these are, this one, the Fazil Say is, let's see, hold on here. Yeah, all these came out really in the last month. Here.
Beautiful. How was that? Good?
Yeah. It's some of these are quite long too. You get a lot for your for the buck, so to speak. Here's this fellow. I've always liked him for doing Bach. He's
Fantastic.
It's a Polish pianist, and I really liked his interpretation of Bach. I just always liked like his partitas and so forth. So he does some Bach and some Mozart, and I think it's worth checking out. It's like 4 hours worth of music, I believe. So that's a good one. Let's see. How many did I show you? Oh yeah, no, one more. There's yeah. He has another one. This is Olafsson from Iceland. Continuum, it's called. And what it is it's they're all Bach pieces arranged by him and a handful of others for piano or two pianos, mainly cantatas. So that's interesting. I might have one more. Let's see. No, I think that's it. That's it. Except
fine.
for the board. Okay, sure.
Jack, any records to show tonight?
I have two that I picked up this weekend. One is funny you should mention Durati. Very clean copy on Mercury.
Beautiful.
The kind of the maroon Mercury label.
Right.
And as Jim would say, it looks like it hasn't been played. It wasn't TNT. It was about 5 times that, but it's in great shape, and it's kind of ironic we talked about Durati. I've had this on CD. I think we've talked about this, Anthony, but I finally found it a good copy on vinyl. If anybody doesn't have this, either on CD, vinyl, or stream, please listen.
Vinyl is incredible.
I need to get that.
When we get on the music to have, starting a classical collection, I would put this in the top 10.
That's the one with the that very, very, very low rumble.
Yeah.
It's you have to have a really great pickup to catch it, but it's amazing. But the playing is exquisite. Michael Ladd's trumpet playing on that is
it's just superb.
Quiet City.
And,
oh, gorgeous.
And I picked up a couple of CDs for Jim. I thought of Jim when I found these. I found this was $5.99, the Nielsen clarinet.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's Gareth. That's Gareth.
That's right. It's his. I found it $5.99 last weekend.
Wow.
And also, Jack, Kevin Banks, the principal clarinet, was a good friend of Jim's and mine at Trinity, and he's the
This is absolutely superb. Absolutely.
It is amazing.
And then I always wanted this, and it's a I don't know if it's an SACD or not, but it was in the bin, so I picked it up. The Salty.
Oh, I've got that. It's great.
And it's
that is great.
And then the third is this is Bournemouth. Jim, maybe you could tell me a little about this. You know this?
Hold on, I can't. Who's the director?
Richard Studd. He's a violinist with the other
Richard Studd, yeah. Well, Bournemouth Sinfonietta, they're no longer going, but they used to be an offshoot of the Bournemouth Symphony, really, and they were a great ensemble. And they recorded quite a lot. I didn't realise they'd recorded on Naxos, but really worth getting. If it's Bournemouth Sinfonietta, it'll be a really good performance. Yeah, and it's all the classic, and the Warlock and the Holst and all the classic.
The Delia Spritten. And it's the Naxos, which is a great label.
Google Peter Warlock. Peter Warlock's real name was Philip Heseltine, and he used to throw cats out of windows. He's a crazy guy. He's a crazy guy.
Anyhow, that's it for me tonight, Anthony. It's kind of
wonderful. We're kind of cramming everything in tonight. I'm sorry, guys. Now, I've got something to show. I'm going to go big for a second because I've got a couple of things to show, and especially because Sky is here. Still a layout. So the first thing, guys, just real quick, I'm after throwing away my CDs like a complete idiot. I'm slowly replacing some of these gems that I had. This is a 1986, I think, Harmonia Mundi, Monteverdi Silva Morale, but with Les Florissants. I think it's Liz Feldman's the singer, William Christie. It is incredible. It's so beautiful. And on the Red Book CD player that I have, the MBL, it's just glorious. I can highly recommend that. It cost me $5 on eBay. It's amazing. Also, I received tonight for review, My Little Friend. So look out for a review of that. Now, I want to just show a couple of records. There is good news, my friends, in the digital vinyl world. This is the first that I received from Hyperion. And it's the, I have been talking with the cutting engineer. It's a German, and it was pressed in France. The pressing is lovely, beautiful label, and it's came beautiful, glossy. Scott, you'd love it. And gatefold, and it's superb music. I mean, obviously the E minor, but there's an early one he wrote when he was 13, Mendelssohn, in D minor, and it's wonderful. Jurovsky's a great Russian conductor, Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment, but don't let the early music moniker throw you. It's like listening to the LSO. I mean, they're so slick. There's sometimes the strings a little bit, maybe not as much vibrato, and sometimes the flute playing, no vibrato, but very rarely. It's just a wonderful recording. And Alina Ibragimova, she's a great violinist. She's kind of contemporary with Tom, our friend Tom, you've met on the show. She's done the Isaïe, Tom's done the Isaïe. She's done the Telemann, Tom's done the Telemann. They kind of echo each other. But her dad was Rinat Ibragimov, sorry, a Russian bassist who plays, I think he's the best bassist I've ever heard. And he got principal of the LSO, and they came over from Russia. Poor Rinat had a stroke and has since died and had to give up the LSO. But go on YouTube and type in Alina Ibragimova and Rinat. They do duets. Listen to him play. She's incredible, but he's also incredible. Anyway, good news. No digital artifacts, lovely, warm, detailed sound. Henwood Hall, not the world's best hall to recording, but highly recommended. And I've got the Breath of God, or something, the Hildegard of Bingen one that they sold 1 million CDs on. So, so that's coming. And I got the English pressing, the French pressing of the Beethoven I was telling you about. And I sent the other pressing, which is very good also, but the French one's a little better, to our friend in Kansas City. So did you receive that yet, Sky?
No, not yet, unfortunately.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. So that's it for me. I'm going to do the equipment next week. Jim, did you have anything to show tonight?
Yeah, I've got a few things to show, which are quite interesting.
Okay.
You want to see them?
Yes, of course.
Just
one sec, Jim. Just one sec, Jim. We have other guests coming on tonight. We've got Andrew and Ryan, and you guys are coming on later, and it gets filled very quickly, I'm afraid. So just so you know, I'm not ignoring you. So let me just get Jim on. Hang on.
Andrew, if you want to knock me off and bring somebody else on, feel free to do that.
You know what? I may just do that, Jack. I love saying goodbye to you at the end of the show as well.
No, it's all good.
Okay, but great to talk to you. Okay. So
because I have a recommendation for Jack, so he needs to watch it.
He'll watch. He'll still watch. Okay, so let me just add to the stage, Andrew. Jim, where are you? There we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just came across this actually this morning on my way
home,
and it's a Consure pressing of it. Obviously they must have bought the license, because these were huge in the 1970s, and again, virtually brand new record.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, obviously you can get these private. Now the interesting thing is, I found this Boston Symphony Orchestra, Evening With.
Hang on. Someone has a lot of noise going on in the background. I don't know who it is.
And it's Deutsche Grammophon.
Okay, go ahead, bud.
And one of them is the Symphony No. 1 Winter Daydreams with Tilson Thomas.
Oh, that's a great recording.
And again, virtually brand new. The second LP is Steinberg doing The Planets.
Can you show the covers of both of those Deutsche Grammophons? Because the covers are amazing.
Oh, that's also Sprach. Hold on. Right. Yeah, so here we are. An evening with.
So that's made in England, James? Is it on the label? Says
I don't know.
Do you have the covers though, Jim? So we can see the covers?
Well, no, they all come in this.
Sorry, box. Yes, this box. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
They all come in this box, and it doesn't have anything on it except the International Festival of Great Orchestras, and they're all Deutsche Grammophon.
Well, that's a great box you got. Some great stuff in there.
And this was £1.99p.
Oh, bugger off!
And you get a very nice booklet with it. It tells you all about the Boston Symphony. I've got a couple of others here which are of interest, I think, that are the mono Bruckner.
Oh, yeah. The mono is easy to find, though. The stereo. Get me a stereo one in good shape.
And this, which is quite interesting, Delius and Bantock, Thomas Beecham, HMV Concert Classics. Again, it's virtually, well, I know it's the 70s because of the, well, you got the whatchamacallit there, haven't you?
Beautiful. Granville Bantock was a professor at Trinity.
He was. And it's Bantock's Delius Song of Sunset and Bantock Fifine at the Fair, whoever Fifine was. And there's another one here as well, I think. Oh, yeah, there's this one, which is interesting. This is Horenstein on Turnabout, doing Bruckner 9.
How's the orchestra?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I thought it was stereo, but it turns out it's mono electronically reprocessed stereo. But hey, anyway, you can't win them all, I suppose. But those are mine. But I'm particularly happy with those Deutsche Grammophon ones.
Yeah.
And the third one is Claudio Abbado doing Daphnis and Chloe.
Oh, that's good. That's with Paul Edmund Davis playing the flute solo.
Yeah. And
Jim, you get what the hell's on Andrew's screen? Andrew, what in the? We gave up Jack for that. What the hell is going on? What is that? It's like something out of 2001. Yeah, great records, James. So, okay, so Sky, did you say you had a recommendation for Andrew? Just put the friggin' Australia. You're not down under, you know, mate. You gravity still works there, you know. It's okay.
It's my new continuum turntable.
Player.
I made a video of it being assembled by the factory, and that's the measuring the speed, and it was only out by 0.009.
Mazel tov. Oh my God! Congratulations. When it's all set up at home, come on and give us and walk around like you know.
No, they assembled it. They came on Saturday and assembled it. It took them all day. 250 kilo pallet it came in.
Wow. What's the arm? You have the caliber and arm as well?
Yeah, it's got the arm as well. That took actually that took about half the time. So I've made a photo essay of it, which I might show next time.
Yeah. Email me ahead of time or go on Facebook ahead of time, just so I know I can schedule it because, you know, I mean, we're just so busy. You know, we have a lot of guests going on. Everybody gets looked after. The worst one is Carl. If I don't get Carl involved, he calls me up the next day. Anthony, you son of a. So I like to make sure everybody feels at least, you know, included. Okay, Sky. Oh, hang on. Andrew's showing it. Andrew's throwing down from Canberra. Watch out. Okay.
I've just been wanting to mention this record. So this is actually a Australian Aboriginal composer who unfortunately died tragically at 41. But 2 weeks before he died, he finished his like master work, which you can download on YouTube, the various sections, and it's sort of like a cross between Corroboree and Le Sacre de Printemps with a Aboriginal touch, and it's actually released. It's actually released on Decca in double LP on vinyl. So just thought to promote it because obviously he died in poverty, unfortunately, of hep C cirrhosis. So the sort of money's going to his family, but it's a pretty extraordinary work. It's very musical, but
can we stream it?
Yeah. If you go on YouTube, if you look up Giramool and Jaromiri, Child of the Rainbow, you'll find they've got a website or YouTube sort of website which has every section of the thing to listen to.
We'll check it out. Sure, thank you. Okay, Sky, show our friend Jack, who kind of fell on the sword tonight, and I'm missing him already. But so show Jack what you had a recommendation for him.
I don't know.
He'll go to Discogs and buy it. So
I don't know if Jack is into string quartets as I am, but this is an album where I thought, since it's Halloween, this is on Virgo. It's kind of an Harmonia Mundi, but with the Artidi Quartet, it's the Ligeti String Quartet #1 and #2.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, when I say about the Halloween, I can't think of any other string quartet that will really come close to #1. It is more than an experience piece, but it is an audiophile, I believe, set. And the string, especially the string quartet #1, is absolutely wonderful. I wish I have a way to actually for you guys to hear it, but it sounds absolutely wonderful. If you're into Bartok string quartets, this kind of considered like probably the additional Bartok string quartet style. But I recommend this.
The Artidi Quartet, all ex-LSO, amazing group of players.
It's one more. I have one more. This is a Deutsche Grammophon. This is the Bach violin concertos with the Oysterx. It's just it's really, this is 138820. I highly rate. This is Sky recommended, so don't sleep.
Oh, Sky recommended.
Don't sleep on it.
We have a subheading now. Sky recommended.
And I want to talk to Andrew about the Hilary Hahn. I was wondering if you spin this album, because I absolutely love this album. I can talk more about it, but I was wondering if you.
Is that the Isaïe?
Yeah, Isaïe. Yeah, it's the one that won the gramophone best recording of the year.
It's amazing. Well, Tom's
unfortunately, she's injured her hand now.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
Tom's done it, and Alina has done it as well. Isaïe. They're becoming very, very popular.
Yeah, it's special. The second, you can actually stream this, and if you want to stream it, please stream the Sonata #2, which is by far my favorite, and you're gonna see how she's incredibly virtuosic, and she plays with amazing skills and control. I don't think, and amazing things about this, that you really feel her right here. I mean, it's at 45 RPM. I actually received it as a birthday gift last year, and now I had the time to open it. So thank you, Andrew.
Leanne's is great choice, Sky. Sky, you always come on with great stuff. That Ligeti, we'll have to look for that. Ligeti, he wrote some pieces. 5 pieces for Winn Quintet, really good. But he's done some comedic operas. If you go on YouTube and find Barbara Hannigan, LSO, and Simon Rattle, she comes on in a really short skirt and plays like this very mouthy school student. And Rattle puts his hand out, and she takes the gum and puts it in his head. It's really funny. It's a very virtuosic opera. Anyway, and Andrew, what are you showing us? You're showing us. He's coming on the show.
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention my experience with Triptych ordering their vinyl. So they've got 3 vinyl records on. So I ordered all 3 on Anthony's recommendation and the previous interview. Yeah. So unfortunately, the first 3 arrived damaged, and I wrote to them, and they said, "Oh, something happened with the shipment. 20% got damaged," and they just sent 3 new ones in different packaging. So
amazing.
So that's, if you like this fantasy Stuka, this is fantastic performance of it.
Amazing. He's coming on the show. Nicholas is coming on the show.
So I also ordered this one, which is sort of new cello music, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's sort of rather sort of hypnotic, sort of music you listen late at night with a port or something.
That's a wonderful cello.
And this is his wife of the guy who orders it.
It's late. Maya.
Now you had queried whether this was available. So I purchased this as a single rather than the whole box. So this is the best of all of them in my review. This is one of the reissues by Herman Meyer, and the other one which I finally got was the Curtis 9. So I had all the first 8 in that series, and they've reissued that. So
Speaker's Corner is very good. The esoteric one is spectacular. It's expensive.
Yeah. So that's other than that. The one final one which you might be interested in. I know there's a lot of interest in the Polini reissue, but this young pianist, Jan, is he a Canadian?
Yes, Calgary. Wonderful. 23 years old. Brilliant.
Yeah. So, and that's very reasonable, available through Amazon. He's actually, I think he's got another record out now. And the final one, for those who like the Bach solo violin, is this new record, and it's available. It's 45 RPM. It's one of my favorite violin works, the Partita No. 2. Okay, beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Oh, Andrew, thank you, Andrew. Andrew, when you got Caliburn running and heating up, we'd love to have a tour and then do the photo essay. So, guys, I think that's it for the Ryan. We're going to get you on. Come on a little bit earlier next week, Ryan, and we'll get you on. And for those people who try to get on tonight, I'm sorry if you didn't make it. We're going to be back again next week. The great thing is it's weekly, and it's 90 minutes. And I just want to say thank you to our guest, Robert Winn, tonight. What a blast that was. I can't wait for him to come on again. I think he was a massive hit. He's already sent me an email. Anthony, was I okay? Jesus, Robert, are you kidding? You're amazing. Amazing. And a great hit. Scott, thanks for the vault tonight. And it was a busy night tonight, kind of hectic night. Yeah, a lot of great records we showed, but and Carl was streaming. We will do the Barden next week, I promise, because the Barden's got some really great LPs. The one after that is going to be mainly CDs, I think, and streaming. So what's going on this week, Jim? Are you you know what time it is now? You're back in London. Everything's fine.
Well, I haven't gone anywhere yet. I mean, my adventures are yet to start, but I'll be here again next Wednesday, so that's fine. Oh,
that's okay. I'm doing like an all call. So if you come on, but if you're late and there's 6 people here, you'll have to get bumped. When I don't like bumping Jack. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that again. I like our preamble afterwards. The after show party. My house we have a lot of fun. Anyway, guys, Scott, what do you got on this week?
What, for video?
Yeah, you got a video coming out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, the Ray Brown Trio is probably going to be out tomorrow.
Great, I can't wait for that. And James, nice to see you again. Thanks, good show. You're very welcome, James. And so, Sky, look out for that little gift, that little
thank you.
Vinyl Community Love Train a little bit. Well, you said you've been such a great guest on the show, and people love you. I will tell you, a lot of people, I get a lot of emails, a lot of feedback from people on comments on my videos and on this my email on Facebook, that people are really enjoying this. They come back every week. It's growing, and they love seeing records, but they love hearing professional musicians talk about the business. Yeah, and those stories tonight were great. I mean, he's worked with Schulte and Durati, and I mean Jim's worked with Durati. I mean, it's great. It's great having people and we all kind of went to school at the same time. He was up at the academy, but a 5-minute walk from where Jim and I were. So it was lovely to have him tonight. And next week, another good guest. But after that, we'll have 3 or 4 weeks where we're no guests up to Christmas. And then we'll see what we're going to do over Christmas. Carl, your family's well and you're teaching lots. And what do you got on this week?
Well, the Halloween is tomorrow, so the kids, of course, are excited.
You got 3 kids are going to go mental, man. Don't eat all the Kit Kats. Don't eat all the Kit Kats out of the M&Ms. Like I used to.
What they get. They'll be excited. They like it.
Mommy, Daddy ate all the Kit Kats out of our candy. Okay, Sarah. Your dad's a pig. That's why. Matthew, Daddy ate all our M&Ms. Anyway, have a wonderful Halloween. I just broke myself up. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. The gallery, thank you so much. Lisa says, "What's that, love?" I love my own jokes. And Jan's giving me a hard time. Lisa says, "Thank you." Max says, "Good stuff. Good stuff today." Have a great week, everybody. It was wonderful to see you. Classical music rocks, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Have a great week. Thank you.
Bye.
And stream.